Star Trek is a franchise I love, but I haven't played that many video games based around it. I enjoyed Star Trek Online when it came to PS4 and Xbox One back in 2016, but since that game never came to the Switch, I haven't played it that much recently. But I was surprised some weeks ago when I saw Star Trek on the coming soon section of the eShop, not Star Trek Online, but a game that was originally on Apple Arcade and was later ported to Steam and now consoles. Let's dive right into this big Star Trek crossover RPG. Here is my review of Star Trek Legends for the Nintendo Switch. The story of Legends takes place in 2371, the same year as the events of the Star Trek Generations movie. The energy ribbon, or Nexus, featured in that movie is being studied. You play as the captain of the USS Artemis. The Artemis is the first ship built to safely enter and navigate the Nexus, but upon entering it, your entire crew disappears and you're face to face with an enemy warship. You quickly recruit Michael Burnham from Star Trek Discovery, Dr. Leonard McCoy from the original series, and Worf from the Next Generation, all of whom have been pulled into the Nexus from different time periods. As a story, it's not bad. The plotline of the Nexus is a great way to create a crossover story, showing characters from completely different time periods interacting with one another. But what I found most interesting were the character interactions and dialogue. It's interesting to see characters like Dr. McCoy losing his mind at finding out that Spock had an adopted sister in Michael Burnham. What I really enjoyed doing as I played this game was using that dialogue to figure out when each of these characters were dragged into the Nexus in their own timelines. For example, Michael Burnham has never seen a Romulan before in this game, putting her from before Star Trek Discovery Season 3's massive time jump. While Worf has knowledge of Deep Space Nine, but also refers to Catherine Janeway as a captain but not an admiral. When it comes to gameplay, this is a light turn-based RPG with gacha elements thrown in. As you play the game, you'll take part in small turn-based battles between your team and an opponent's, and use resources to upgrade your team and summon new characters from within the Nexus. First of all, let's talk about the differences between the console version and the older Apple Arcade and Steam ports. Essentially, Legends for console is an offline or single-player version of the game. Multiplayer features like PvP and clans are not in this release, and that goes beyond just the Switch. I've seen footage of the PlayStation 5 version, and it also lacks these multiplayer features. This also means it's no longer an always online game like it is on PC. The Switch version is also divided into two releases. The base version of this game is $12 and contains most characters, but regulates many event-specific cameos like Guinan and Miles O'Brien to paid DLC. Or you can pay $20 for the complete edition that has all of those characters built in, the same price you'd pay for the full game on Steam. Next up is main progression. On the main menu, you can go into story missions to advance the plot and unlock more characters and features, but you can also unlock and go into crew to manage all of your characters, the shop to let you buy resources for gaining XP and doing upgrades, bridge to assign your characters to stations on the ship and give you in-battle buffs, survival arena and ops to go in and do special battles for rewards, or the shuttle to let your characters go on timed missions for large XP gains. Many of these features have mobile mechanics like timers for attempt recharges at the non-story modes, along with achievements and daily missions. But despite it feeling like a game that would use them, Legends has never featured microtransactions. It simply offers the resources you need in good quantities from just playing the game. And then there's the summon mechanic. At its core, Star Trek Legends is a gacha game where you use orbs to summon new crew members. There are a decent amount of generic crew members of various Star Trek races, but the bulk of the roster are cameo characters from the franchise. Catherine Janeway, Chris Pike, Tomalak, Jean-Luc Picard, Seven of Nine, Q, and the list goes on. It's not completely caught up on New Trek, having no one from Lower Decks, but it's got quite a few characters from all of the TV shows and movies from the original series, all the way up to Season 1 of Star Trek Picard. The gacha elements and RNG are pretty fair and in your favor as well. I rarely go even 2 summons without getting the rare cameo character. What you're looking at right now is me summoning 7 times in a row from the pool of all characters. From that 7, I only got 3 generics, and of the 4 rare characters I got, 2 of them were brand new that I'd not unlocked before. Plus, if you do get any duplicates, they turn into a full set of tokens that lets you rank up that character, increasing their stats. Now let's get into the missions. When you go into the story, you take a party of 4 as an away team, tackling little stages. Some of these little nodes on the map are intel and exploration that have you dealing with just cutscenes to show you what's happening in the story, though exploration also give you choices, letting you tackle problems in various ways depending on your character's skills like science, medical, and engineering. The rest of the nodes are combat, where you fight enemies. Combat is turn-based, where each character takes a turn to put in a command and they have different skills they can use. This game has stats and conditions like morale, red alert, shields, and other Star Trek terminology to change stats and use buffs. Each character also has skills that are specific to them, and all of those skills have cooldown times. Having you wait and not being able to just spam your most powerful moves or healing hypo sprays every single turn. There's also a pretty smart auto battle system, letting you modify the speed of battle and the game putting in commands for you. Once you clear a battle, you gain experience and resources in the form of summon orbs, materials for upgrades, and gold latinum to use for money. And that's where the loop begins. With resources, you can power level your characters and equipment, summon new characters, and repeat the process. While most games make resources extremely scarce the further you go, this game doesn't really do that. I can go through survival mode every day for the allotted 10 attempts and come out with at least 3 to 5 summons worth of orbs along with other resources. The only hurdle is timers. While you can infinitely do story mode, there are limited attempts or advancements in survival, ops, events, and arena. Once the daily attempts are spent, you must wait for them to regenerate. This also goes for the shuttle feature, which lets you send characters on missions to grant huge boosts in XP and resources, but they take time. This is the easiest way to get levels quickly, and why a lot of people call this game a grind, is once you hit chapters 4 to 5 of the story, you will regularly need to level your characters to keep the difficulty from getting too high in those story missions. You're essentially at the mercy of those shuttle timers. Or are you? You actually don't have to wait for those timers. Since the console release is offline and not centered around always being connected to the internet, the game gauges time based on your Nintendo Switch's system clock. Something you can easily exploit by starting an 8-hour shuttle mission, suspending your game to change the clock to the next day, and going right back in. The game thinking it actually is the next day and lets you collect the rewards. I personally think the gameplay loop is great. Sure, it's very basic with the stages just being battle arenas, and everything about it with daily missions, achievements, gacha, resources, etc. just screams mobile game. But it just feels fun with seeing more characters coming in, setting that 8-hour shuttle mission when going to bed, and for some reason it was always such a joy and I just kept getting dragged back in. That brings us to content and length. You can spend a lot of time on this game. I didn't beat the story mode until I've been playing for well over 25 hours. And once you beat it, you can unlock further difficulties to go through again and unlock better shuttle missions to further your growing arsenal of characters. I will admit that a lot of the replay value is hurt with the lack of online multiplayer functionality, but it can still be fun to go through again as you gather more of the characters. Next up is presentation, which I think looks fine. The game has a cartoony, not quite chibi look to it. The models look well enough, though there are little jaggies here every once in a while. The only issue I had with presentation was that cutscenes around chapter 4 when you first meet Odo have dialogue appearing far to the right of the screen, most of it cut off and not readable. With performance, things are mostly good. I never had any issues with the frame rate. I have two main problems with performance. First, the load times can be a bit lengthy. When first going into game modes, it can take upward of 30 to 40 seconds. The game also has a tendency to crash when starting nodes in story mode. It's very random when this happens, as the same node will never crash twice in a row, though it will often require you to redo the previous node and try again when you restart the game. Next up is battery life. Star Trek Legends gives the original and light models a battery range of about 2 to 3.5 hours, while the V2 and OLED models get 5 to 6 hours. In conclusion, Star Trek Legends is a fun little gacha RPG that plays like a mobile game yet contains no microtransactions. Now the downside, they removed the multiplayer for all console versions, and the Switch version has longer load times and occasional crashes in mission mode. Sure, it's a simple mobile game ported to consoles, but it's accessible and fun, from the ability to exploit the clock to reduce the grind, to seeing characters interact with one another that have no business doing so. Reviews to Go rates Star Trek Legends for the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.